Guys, who doesn't like a good bully beatdown? Seeing the little guy fight back against the strong one and show him what's happening. Well, today we're going into a top 10 covering those exact manhwas that you should be reading right now. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and let's not waste any more time talking, and let's jump into the list. At number 10 is How to Fight. How to Fight deserves to be higher up on a list, but honestly, I love everything on this list so much that, well, that's what it is. How to Fight follows the basic setup. You have fighting in school, but in this case, something a little different. Streaming. You have these characters making these videos to put up on YouTube, kind of their version of YouTube, and going viral based on these fights. And that's the setup at the beginning of the story, but there ends up being a lot of amazing fights in this series with a protagonist that seems really weak but finds really original ways to get out of it. But he's a bit of an adrenaline junkie. He keeps putting himself in this crazy situations and finding a way out of it nonetheless, which makes this one a lot of fun to read and really enjoyable. At number 9 is True Education. True Education is kind of one of those, the school is a disaster, delinquents have taken over, delinquents have gone to the point of driving certain students to end their own lives. It's a terrible circumstance, but there's a new badass in town, and this is a government representative that's there kind of basically to shake things up, and he has the right to do things that most do not. It follows him as well as some students around him and how they get their lives changed by that character. It's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of character transformation and development, which is really enjoyable, and seeing some bullies get their asses kicked always feels good. At number 8 is Weak Hero. Weak Hero is another one of those underdog becomes the badass of the school. The silent type, the one no one knew about, but when someone tried to screw with him, well, they got a little effed up. In a school full of bullies where they control everything, he's kind of the wild card, and they have to do everything they can to basically put him down before he becomes dangerous. This one has some of the best surrounding character development that I have in this list. There's some really good interactions, there's some really wholesome moments as well as some heartbreaking moments that occur in the story, and I just love it to death. It's phenomenal. You should definitely be reading this if you aren't already. At number 7 is Study Group. Study Group is a lot of fun, like many others on this list. Study Group follows a protagonist that is an otaku by the definition of her mother, but not an otaku for what you would think. An otaku for martial arts. He's actually obsessed with martial arts as like a video form, something you discover a little bit later when there's circumstances that happen. The thing that's interesting and differentiates this one, yes, there's bullies, yes, there's bully beatdowns, but there's this idea of the teacher, the girl, the main girl of the story, just wanting to get better lives for her students, and he is kind of the intermediary for making that happen. And the study group is basically a way for them to create a circle in order to make these students have better lives in the long term. Good character interactions. The main female protagonist is actually a really interesting character with a lot of wholesome values and good interests, but the main guy is just such a weirdo. But he's enjoyable to watch. There's some awesome beatdowns, and if you enjoy that, you're definitely going to enjoy this one. At number 6 is Guard Pass, and oh my god, I wish I had more chapters of this one to read. This is the Jujutsu series. Main protagonist is this large, I'll call him fat character at the beginning because that's the way the story defines him. He is bullied in some ways, and his best friend, this girl, who's this Jujutsu fanatic, They fight against bullies trying to do it. She's stronger than him initially, and she puts herself in a circumstance where she ends up getting really badly hurt. She gets hospitalized. He goes in there feeling responsible because she had defended him in class that day, and he feels responsibility that he needs to get revenge. And his pathway is to learn jujitsu and become a badass. His transformation is a little much, but it's cool. He looks amazing. He's ripped as hell after his workouts in jiu-jitsu, and he slowly but surely becomes this really powerful badass, but also just a good character. The art style really works for this one and really makes it really good. It is earlier in the series. We're not like that far in, but I am so excited every time I get a new chapter for this one. At number 5 is God of Blackfeld. What starts off as a military shooter of a character in a guerrilla war turns out to be a high school story. This is kind of a story of reincarnation. For some reason, the characters of his platoon end up reincarnated into characters in South Korea. And yeah, it's similar to another thing on this story in regards to it's a military fanatic, really strong going into a school setting, beating up some bullies with amazing training, dealing with gangsters and just like wrecking them completely. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the first arc. I think it's definitely the better arc of the story, but it continues to be a really engaging and strong story all the way through. Some of the best beatdowns you'll find on this list, actually. And the main character is just cool, to be honest. He has this badass way of being. He was the captain of his military group. He is so strong, but he also gets to get revenge on those that betrayed him along the way, that made him reincarnate because he died. At number 4 is a complete cheat, I'll be honest. This shouldn't be on the list. At number 4 is Manager Kim. I know, this is complete cheat. Technically, this doesn't happen in school, but his daughter gets into trouble because of stuff at school. The main antagonists and problems that occur in the story are because of a female classmate that she has problems with, so I'm cheating, kind of working. The beatdown on the bullies in this one is the dad. This story is so much fun. If you ever watched Taken, it is exactly Taken. The daughter gets kidnapped. He thinks she's dead, and the father goes on a rampage. He is ripped. He's an ex-military badass. He has a license to kill. He just, oh my god, it's so much fun and so brutal. And I cannot wait every week for a new chapter. They are so good. And this is actually a runoff of another series called Lookism. This is the same Manager Kim from that series, actually. So that is another interesting thing, despite me not being a big fan of Lookism. At number 3 is Supernova. Supernova follows the protagonist as discovers a cat that basically trains him to be the most badass warrior in history. Typical story, right? Actually, Ellaseed has a bit of a typical story to it. They have a very similar story to it. But I really enjoy Supernova. And the reason Ellaseed is not on this list is because it has so little to do with school. It is almost entirely outside of school, honestly, even though I cheated for Manager Kim before. But Supernova is phenomenal. The fights are on point. The bully beatdowns are of a different scale. Like, I'm thinking early on when their first interactions with the cat take place, it's really cool. 1,500 years spent as a soul going through time, basically, and the cat is this badass warrior from that time, and he was able to train some of the greatest warriors in history. Actually, Kim, which is a previous historical figure in Korea. But yeah, it's really, really fun. The art style looks amazing, and for that alone, it's definitely worth checking out. At number 2 is Mercenary Enrollment. If you had asked me a few months ago if I think Mercenary Enrollment would have been near the top of this list, I'm not sure it would have been. There was this moment where I wasn't sure if it was going to be able to be as good as it was initially. Those first few chapters in school when he was putting the beat down on bullies were amazing. And none of the other pieces of action quite lived up to seeing bullies get put down. And I saw a certain amount of repetitiveness starting to set into the kidnappings taking place and the sisters threatened, and it was always about protecting, kidnapping, and stuff like that. But they've really found their groove and their way to go. The story is fantastic. Ijin is an amazing protagonist. If you want to do a stoic character like him, you need to create a character like Ijin, that when there's these soft moments of quietness with his family and you see his smile, you see something deep in the character that's like affected positively by it, and it's such a nice experience as a character because he has those badass, like, no forgiveness, I'm going to wreck you moments, but he has those quiet moments where he's just a good grandson or a good brother, and that mix is what makes a good character. At number 1 is The Breaker and The Breaker New Waves. These are my favorite manhwas of all time. Not even on this list, but of all time. Yes, they look like manga. They are black and white. That's not what makes manhwa. Manhwa is Korean. That's the idea. So, The Breaker and The Breaker New Waves, I'm a big fan of The Breaker New Waves, and for the academic side of it, the school side of it, The Breaker New Waves is where it happens. You follow this amazing protagonist that goes from having, losing any type of martial arts ability he had a chance to have, to basically fighting his way back because he needs to be able to protect his friends. He risks his life at every turn just to get the power to protect those that matter to him. And despite there being a lot of controversy around him attaining a certain role at the beginning of Breaker New Waves, there's so much amazing character development, physically, mentally, of him and his surroundings and the loyalty of the group that he joins to him for the badass that he becomes. If you have not read The Breaker and The Breaker New Waves, you're doing yourself a disservice. There is a third season of it coming out this year. I read it today, actually. There's going to be stuff either coming out middle of the year this year or near the end of the year of 2022. But this has been a long time awaited. This one has been waiting for years to get its third season, and I cannot wait to see the story come to an end because it is so damn good. Guys, I hope you like this list. If you like this type of thing, please do like and subscribe to the channel. And also, I would love to know what you'd like me to cover next. So leave a comment down below with what you'd like to see. See you soon.